You set?
Yes, sir. We're good to go. Okay. Can you guys? I don't know. Do I need to hold the mic, or is this is also a mic, right? I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, let me know if I'm an auctioneer, so I'm used to talking loud. So I like to move around a lot, but I can't get this remote doing, so I'm just going to probably sit around here to advance my slides. But I don't have many slides. First of all, if you've not met me yet, I'm the operations director for the 1715 Fleet Queens Jewels. We are the company that has the leases to salvage or to recover artifacts from the fleet, the 1715 fleet. And my name's Sal Guttuso. If you know, don't raise your hand, but anybody guess where my accent comes from?
Mississippi.
Close, but not exactly, right? You know, I lived in Mississippi. Yeah, okay. Any other guesses?
Louisiana.
Yep, you got it. So I was born in New Orleans and grew up in Mississippi. But I did live in Florida a while, and it's a beautiful place, and we have a little place here in Florida. So what we do is, we work with the state of Florida and the federal government, but what we do is always almost a year behind, because whenever things are found in 2024, it takes us until early 2025 to get those things documented, conserved, adjudicated by the federal government, and then distributed to the finders, and the investors, and the state of Florida gets their donation as well. So that's what this is. Every year we produce kind of a unique and notables section of our archaeology report. And so those are, everything's really cool that's found, but then a coin can be a coin, and it may be something that we see a lot of, but there'll be certain coins and certain artifacts that stand out. And that doesn't mean they're more valuable monetarily, but that's what this little presentation is about, is the 2024 Unique and Notables. There's my information if you need my email address or my phone number. There's the company, little logo we've had for a long time. And so you don't need to read this. This is in the report. This is just everything in a spreadsheet, the unique and notables. And we'll go through these. For the first one, this was a standout for a coin because, first of all, it's a Lima coin, and we don't see a lot of Lima coins. It's a Lima one escudo. We see even less Lima one escudos. And if you've seen Lima one escudos, these are tiny little coins, like pinky nail size. But this particular Lima one escudo is got a really nice date variety thing happening here. That's a 1712 at first sight. But then as you study this, you see that it's overstruck with a 1 and also a 0. So that's a pretty rare coin. There's not many of those that have been found on the fleet. That particular coin, a coin can tell you so much as well. You can see some of the details. Now, this was initially, the archaeologist, as we put this together, just put 1712 because that's the most obvious date. But you can see the mint mark, you can see the assayer initial, and just a really beautiful little coin. That was the Gooch boys found that coin on the cabin wreck. This was an interesting little coin, and it's some of the disturbance that happens with some of our wrecks. This is an much earlier coin, mid-1500 or late 1500s, very good condition, 1 real, and that was found in the area where that earlier 1618 wreck has some overlap. And so that very likely could have come from that wreck. That was found on the Capitana, right? Yep, Capitana found that. Now this was a really impressive find, and one of the young men that was, actually one of them was young, the other one's a little older, that were instrumental in this find are in the audience. That's Captain Mike Penninger and Captain Grant. There's young Nick Emilio and Corinne, and they got into a section of coins that were a lot of large clumps. It was over 200 silver coins, mostly large coins, 4s and 8 reales. And some of those they graciously donated to the state of Florida as part of their donation. really fascinating coins. And what was the largest clump? 7, 6? Yeah, and you just don't have a lot of clumps these days come out. I mean, you hear about clumps from the old days, but that was a really unique find. This stuff is pretty rare, and I mean, if anyone has anyone seen Olive Blossom come from a different shipwreck than the 1715 fleet? Let me know, because I've not. You have?
1733.
Did they have some? Was it the same design, or?
I have to take a closer look.
Right. That's good to know. I'm going to look into that. This stuff is extremely rare, and it's come off of our shipwrecks. You know, it comes in pieces. Some complete chains have been found, but this particular season we found, I think it was just under 14 inches in different sections. This came from the Corrigan's wreck site, and as you can see on the top corner there's a picture of a little piece in situ, and that was me taking that picture, and I found that piece, and I was really hopeful that as I pulled it, it would just keep coming. Unfortunately, what you see is what I got. It was about a ½ an inch long. But we found a good selection of that olive blossom chain, and that stuff, if you've ever seen it in person, it is so, I mean, it's so intricate and so tiny. Those flowers, without my reading glasses, you can't hardly see those. Now, underwater, thankfully, gold, everything else looks bigger a little bit, so it does help. But these things, each of those links is 2 flowers on either side, and then 2 links form together, and then it looks like a little box with 4 flowers. And that's cool stuff. High carat gold, very valuable, very rare. Now, we were talking about this a little bit because I'm a big fan of the Central America, the SS Central America, and the 1715 fleet also has gold dust, nuggets, flakes, and these were a couple of little examples of some of the ones that we found in 2024. These were just little, little pockets of it, and you got to know how to recover it because a metal detector doesn't ring off on this gold. Interestingly enough, and I need to talk to Jorge about this a little bit as well later, but if you look at some of Jack Haskins' early stuff, he talks about the manifest of the 1715 fleet that talks about gold dust. There's one manifest that mentions gold dust, as far as I know. And in that manifest, if you do subscribe to that being this ship or that ship, which we really don't know for certain, there's different theories, but Jack Haskins then linked that back to being the Royal Fifth. You guys understand the Royal Fifth, of the donation to the crown. He linked that back to being the Royal Fifth for this little mining district known as Mompox, which that didn't even sound like a name that somebody would use then, but sure enough, I looked it up, and south of Cartagena, 100 miles or so, there's this little mining district of Mompox, and it's still kind of a tourist attraction today. And so they would have gotten this gold dust. So we've not tested this, but I may work with Mr. Bob Evans, who, I would like to see if he could show that this actually comes from Colombia, where the manifest says. It'd be really cool. So even something so insignificant can tell you a lot. Speaking of insignificant, little things like this, they don't come up very often. This is just a very unassuming silver cufflink, or a button. I think that's in the Florida collection. A lot of this stuff, by the way, the unique and notables, naturally they end up in the Florida collection, a lot of the things. Now, if Florida has some examples of that already, they won't take it. This little buckle was nice, a little silver buckle. That came up. That was also the Gooch Boys. This is kind of a darker picture, unfortunately, but it's a neat little piece. The bottom thing, we're not sure, but the top piece, front and back, it's a little cherub's head. It's a little foot for maybe a little box or something. That was a neat piece. That is also in the Florida collection now. Now this piece came up where we were finding the gold, and I did the research in the database, and when it comes to red stones, there's just not a lot that have come off of these fleets. I found reference of maybe 2 others, all the way back to the 60s. One of them they called a blood red ruby, and the other one they just said red stone. Well, we had a couple of different jewelers look at it, and a one pawn shop owner, The pawn shop owner said, it's glass. But both of the other jewelers said that is garnet, and that the cuts are very consistent with very early faceting styles. It's flat on one side, and we do believe it's a garnet. Garnet makes a lot more sense than ruby, because ruby would have been sourced somewhere other than where they were getting this stuff from, and there was a lot of garnet in Mexico. But interestingly enough, of course, that's in the Florida collection. We do think it's garnet. But once again, as you'll see in a few moments, we found another one just like it, or not just like it, but very similar this past season. So Florida already has one. They can't have the next one. Well, maybe. We'll see. Here's a nice piece, two pieces of Kangxi porcelain, and somewhat unusual because a lot of times you'll just see blue and white. This has a second color. I told the young men that pulled that up, I said, it's a really nice piece. It's a shame you broke it. Now this piece kind of tricked us, and this is also in the Florida collection. It's Captain Mike Perna and his crew found this piece. He's sitting in the back. At first, it almost looked like stoneware. But then when you start getting a closer examination, this thing is very delicate, very thin, and then it has this brown glaze. Turns out this is also a piece of Chinese export porcelain. Now, the gentleman, Rich Mellon, he will talk a lot more about this and other things because he was instrumental in helping us identify this. Batavia ware, which I would have never come up with that, but this thing is a really neat little jug and it's almost completely intact, which is amazing that it survived a shipwreck and then another 300 years underwater. There's a dead eye, so a lot of you understand that technology. They had a lot of those on a ship, and you know, you think about wood, we don't see a lot of wood artifacts, but we do see some, and you know, wood generally would not have held up, but in my opinion, some things like the iron surrounding that could have kept that wood from being as attractive to the worms.
Is it latent biting?
Huh?
Is it latent biting, the wood?
Yeah, I've heard the term. Mike, yeah?
I think so,
Yeah, we think so then.
Yeah, well, that's resistant to the stone.
So yeah, I mean, in some of them, like Captain Perna, he had one on display at the history fair a couple of days ago, and some of them can serve out amazing. You know, like you could use it. Yeah. Very good. Now, this was an unassuming piece, and it, also in the state of Florida collection now. But once again, Captain Mike found this, Mike Perna. They had it x-rayed, and you can see it's very likely part of a flintlock pistol. Speaking of armament, there's a pommel to a small sword, a little silver pommel. That was the Gooch Boys. This piece really surprised us. It came out very encrusted, and you really couldn't see any detail on it. And that's a little sword handguard. And as you can see, after conservation, it is loaded with detail. There's a horseman hunting, maybe a lion. There's another horseman behind him. You flip it over, and there's like this little baby thing in a fountain, or I don't know what that is, and there's somebody else over there. There's faces on either side of the center hole. Very interesting piece. This is pretty common to find small pieces of, but this is a larger piece. This is lead sheathing, which was used to shore up wood on the boat. And they use it for a lot of different things, not just on the boat itself, but we think there's boxes and things that had lead linings. You don't find too many keys. Actually, this key, I'd never seen. 2 bronze keys came up. The state of Florida has one, and they were found in an area with some coins as well, which kind of, you get your ideas. But these 2 keys, and then Captain John Brandon's book, he has a key very similar featured in his book. So we just don't see a lot of keys on these wrecks. And then speaking of keys, this doesn't look like much, and this is not the whole thing. It was in several pieces. Captain Mike Perna also came up with this box, and it was all silty and gross and kind of, he brought it up, and I think I would have been hopeful that it would have been filled with something good like emeralds or something, but it wasn't. It was just filled with dirt, right, Mike?
That's correct.
Yep. But still a cool piece, and the dimensions of the box are fairly similar to what we think the dimensions of a chest may have been. Ben, I think, did some research on that. That was a cool piece. For some reason, Florida didn't claim that. This is not 1715 fleet. It's from a wreck that we term the pig iron wreck, but it's an SS Panama is the name of the wreck. It's not officially really a shipwreck as much as they just scuttled the boat and dumped a lot of stuff. But that's a part of a possible steam whistle, 1887. Florida has that. Now, that's it for 2024 unique and notables, but just a sneak peek for you can see 2025 might have been a little bit more exciting.
Just a little bit.
Young Captain Levin, who's been doing this for over a decade, his first season with a boat of his own, working with Mike Perna, and he comes upon 1,051 large 4 and 8 reales. And we've been conserving them slowly, and they've been conserving beautifully. Not to be outdone, Captain Mike Perna found the 5 gold coins, the 2 large Mexicos, a Grot and a 1714, both beautiful coins. That was all of that, and the silver came from the Anchor wreck. The 3 smaller gold coins, 2 Bogotas, 1 Cusco, which is extremely rare. We don't see many Cuscos at all on these wrecks. For our wrecks, they're rare as far as the database goes. That was from the Douglas Beach wreck, and then you can see more gold dust and, like I said, another red gemstone. So what are those red gemstones coming from? That's what I'd like to know.
How do you collect that gold dust?
Oh, it's a trade secret. No. I'm the one doing that, and it's I use a little underwater suction. I mean, you're not gonna do it with a metal detector, and you're not gonna pick it up by hand. But you can see in that gold dust some flowers, and that's part of the thing. Those chains broke up into bits. So let's see. I think that's it. We've got a beautiful wintertime sunrise on the Treasure Coast. So any questions? Yes, sir?
My understanding is that when you find encrusted cogs, the readings that the state of Florida requires you to conserve them. But what about a plum? Do you have to break up the plum?
Okay. So the question was, when we find this stuff as part of our duty under the Admiralty arrest and working with the state of Florida, we have to conserve this stuff and get it stable, and we have to document it, and that is true. But the question was, what about with clumps? So it's a great question, because actually those clumps that I showed you from 2024 were fully encrusted. They were cookied. And as such, if we were to have conserved them, it would have separated them. Not only would it have separated them, but when the coins are cookied like that, there's a lot less coin underneath than you would think. And so the coins were not going to be high-grade coins. Maybe some of the inside ones could have been, possibly. But that being said, we made the decision on those not to do any further conservation. Now, what happened was, by doing that, each one of those was deemed as unique, and Florida took every one of them as donation. So you have to make a choice there. That's a tricky thing. And I also got a slap on the wrist from Florida, because it's our duty to conserve the coins. And and there are certain cases where we cannot do that. If you remember some of the small coins that Captain Mike Perna has found, that he's found without a metal detector. He's just lightly dusting, and the coins they're 1 reals and half reals, that if you were to conserve them, there would be nothing left. Those coins, I will argue that we're not going to conserve, because it will be lost in conservation. But a larger coin, yes, we could have conserved those clumps. We probably should have conserved those clumps. Now, what we're doing with the 2025 find, there was a handful of clumps of 2 8 reales, maybe 2s and 4s, not many, but Mike Perna, our head in conservation, has figured out, a way, and those were not cookied up, so it's a lot different, but a way to conserve as much of those coins as he can without them separating. And that's how we're going to submit them, because to us, it's really cool to see them as a clump. You almost hate to break them up. Yeah. Okay, other questions?
So, concerning the garnets, and I don't have any background in geology, but I've done quite a bit of gold mining out in the desert southwest in California.
Yes.
And the garnets typically do occur in the same areas that gold is mined
Yes.
in. There's this area that I've gone gold mining in. I know of 2 garnet patches where I've found thousands of these things. So they
Yes.
probably just put them on the fleet as novelties or something.
Right. Well, I mean, those particular 2 were faceted, so they've been worked. However, we were talking about this earlier. Some of the area where we find the gold, we also in with that gold we find flakes. We find tiny garnet sands, flakes of garnet, and that absolutely probably, if we do the research, came from wherever they were mining the gold. If it were in Colombia or wherever, we'll do the research. It could be another clue that helps us locate it, because absolutely garnet is a heavy, just like gold is heavy. Rick, back to you.
Could you just share with us a little more insight into the whole process of interaction with the state in terms of the division and how the whole point process works in their 20%? I mean, is it like the NFL draft, or how exactly are things assigned to point value? Say you've got 1,100 or so silver coins and 5 gold coins. I mean, how do they figure
Yes.
out this division?
Okay, so the question is regarding division with the state and pointing, and so yeah, so it is quite the process, and it's a good problem to have when you got over 1,000 coins. But lucky for us, our predecessors established a good system with the pointing system. It is our duty as the custodian not only to conserve, ID, pre-conservation weight, post-conservation weight, pre-conservation photos, post-conservation photos. We do all of this, but it's also our duty to identify as best as we can, as we're not professionals. We're not, numismatists, but to identify and also to give relative grades. Those grades have been established, and we try, of course, you can try to be as objective as possible, but it's impossible to be completely objective from one grader to the next. But we do have a committee. We have discussions, especially on things that we don't have a precedent for. But we do have a great database that goes back to the 60s that shows us if there's something like the red stone, for example, how does that point? There's only been 2 found. Well, I looked on the database and I saw what they pointed those other 2 for. So, for lack of better thing, it's our discretion to point that way. Now, the grading for the coins, grade 1 through 4, but there's also a grade 1 plus, and there's a grade 1 plus plus. And those are reserved for very high grade or very special coins. Now, there's also the ability for us to do something with grade 1 with a star or asterisk. And that would be something that is not only extremely good condition, but it could be an extremely rare date variety or something that makes that coin outside of that regular realm. The points are established for those number varieties, and we have charts. So if it's for the escudos, we have charts from 8 escudo, grade 1 through, or 1 plus plus through 4, and then all the way down, 4 escudo, 2 escudo, 1 escudo, and same way with silver coins. Those points are established. And so then we just assign those points. Now, if it's 1 star, that's where we have to have a discussion, because that goes out of the realm of what we already have established points for. We put those points together. We provide the state of Florida with a spreadsheet, as well as with all of the photographs. They have 30 days, and they've been really good about this the last couple of years, to make their donation request. They make their donation request. If we agree with it, then and this is all going through the court, mind you, then we let them know we agree, and then it gets stamped off, signed off, it goes to the court, and it becomes part of the paperwork with the inventory that then we get adjudication. Now, as far as the donation goes, the way I like to think of it is like the Royal Fifth or the Quinto. Instead of us paying the Crown, we're paying the people of Florida, the state of Florida. It's a donation, but it's kind of a mandatory, it's an arrangement as part of our Admiralty. And we have no problem with it. And if you look at the amount of stuff that's in the Tallahassee Museum, most of it is in the back. They have amassed an amazing collection, and I'm really looking forward to hearing Dr. Sam Wilford will be here to talk about the Florida collection, because it's really impressive. That being said, it's a lot like, there are some things in place that remind me of the Treasure Act in England, where if they have 3 examples of a given coin, they don't have the right to take another of that coin. So we don't have totally up-to-date records, but we do have the books that were published on the Florida collection that help us to understand, okay, they already have this many of this coin date or that many of that coin date. So if it's something unique, absolutely. But the other issue, and this is something that, you know, this thing that just happened with this silver collection is a great thing, because there are times where they want something, but that item is pointed far more than the 20% per rec that they are allowed to request. They can request more than 20%, but unless we can get everyone to agree to it, our subcontractor that found it, the owners, the investors, we can't do that, and it's really not fair to those people that spent so much money that are not getting compensated. So this is the case where if we had a benefactor that came in, or a foundation that came in and donated the funds to then donate the collection to the state of Florida, it works out well, because there are a lot of things that have gone into private hands that would have been great for the state of Florida, but they could not get them because the point values were far beyond their 20%. I'm sorry to go long-winded on that, but that was a big question. Yeah.
We all know that finders keepers on the beach, because I'm a treasure hunter on the beach. But if, let's say, a gold dime or something washed up, or something really shipped out, can the state come in and snag it from you if you found it, metal detecting on the beach?
Okay, so
other than cops and the schools.
Okay, so fast, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information from some research I did, and you can research. I would encourage you to research it yourself. To answer your question directly, if you found something on the beach and nobody else knows about it, they don't have like law enforcement following you down the beach. But if you wanted to get provenance and pedigree, you probably would at least go to the company, go to us and say, hey, can you help me with this? But I'm going to tell you one thing I learned. Has anyone heard of customary use ordinance in Florida? Customary use ordinance. Yes. Okay. So who remembers in Florida, I don't know, it's been a while now, 2017 or 16 even maybe, where some people that owned property on the beach were putting up fences across the beach. Does anyone remember that? Yes. Okay. All right. That was a time where not every county had adopted this thing called customary use ordinance. And customary use ordinance is a thing that goes back to Roman times, but in Florida's government, if you want to receive, if you're a county or a city, and you want to be eligible for tax-funded beach replenishment, then you have to also adopt customary use ordinance. And so customary use ordinance, it's not a drinking game where I say that you drink every time. It basically means that if you own that house or that condo, that beach is officially your property. However, you can build steps down to it, but you cannot keep people from using it for customary use. You can't keep the kid from building the sandcastle, the person from fishing, sunbathing, or metal detecting, with one caveat. Under customary use ordinance, the dune base to the wet sand, anything over 50 years, is officially the property of Florida. That's the law. Now, it's the government the different government agencies don't talk, because every summer on Facebook, the Board of Tourism puts up a thing that says, come look for shipwrecked treasure on the Florida Treasure Coast. So, if you do your research, yeah. I mean, I don't like looking over my shoulder, but yeah. And it was interesting because back in 2018 even, there were a lot of beaches that had not done that. Not on our Treasure Coast, I think so much, but there was some hurricanes that happened, and even some of those counties decided to sign up for beach replenishment is protecting the property, which the real treasure of the Treasure Coast is not the treasure. What is it? It's real estate. Yeah.
So my question is, what if it's an empty beach, meaning there is no condos built, there's no houses built? Because there are certain sections of our area that have that.
Is it a county beach? It's part of a county. Does it get replenished? I mean, if it's receiving the stuff, yeah.
Okay.
But again, these are not. I don't think there's many victims in these kind of things. It's not like, yeah. So I'm not trying to scare anyone. I mean, certainly, I'm just giving you what my understanding is from my research, and I did it for there was a big reason why I had to do that research, which I won't get into, but yeah. Yes, sir.
When you say donation, do you really mean tax?
Donation is a nice word that we use. We don't mind the donation. Honestly, we don't. It's going to a good cause, right? We hope that stuff will be displayed for future generations, and it's fine. And understandably, the submerged water is the property of the people of Florida. So Florida is gracious to allow us to continue to do this, but we do have some permanent things in place that help.
So the state takes 20%, is that what it is?
20%, yeah, 20%.
State what?
No, none. No, federal stuff, I just have to do a lot of paperwork. Now, when we say they take 20%, it's not always completely 20%. Example, when I found the gold dust back in 2023, I found about 1/3 of a pound of gold dust and nuggets. I found all of that gold dust and nuggets, and we found a gold coin. I found this one little weird lead dress hook with a flower on it. 1 point. All that other stuff was about 200 points. They took the 1 point. That's all they took. They took none of the gold. They already had the gold coin in their collection, or multiples. They didn't want the gold dust. So in that case, they only took 1 point. But in other cases, when these poor guys found all of those cookied clumps, they took all of the clumps but one, which meant for that wreck site, they took the full 20%. But from those guys, they gave up like 30-something%.
35.
So they have their hands out with the other subcontractors, like, come on, guys. Okay.
If you find something and the customary use permit is applied, does the state get 100%?
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, if you're the good citizen and you find a gold cob on the beach and you alert the state of Florida, they will graciously accession that into the people of Florida's collection. Maybe take a picture with it.
Graciously.
Yeah.
Do you tell you before you tell the state?
Honestly, I mean, if you're metal detecting on the beach, I don't think you're hurting anybody. I mean, that's, yeah. Yeah, you can tell us if you want. I mean, Rick.
What happens if, like, you've got 10 dive groups and they all find stuff, and then the state just wants 100% from one of the groups? How do they get compensated?
Yeah, and it's a great question. Question is, if you've got 10 groups and one group, one of the subcontractors gets punished 100% of their stuff as the donation, and that's the 20% of the wreck. So in the past, we try to make it as fair as we can, and what we can do as the owners of the company, what they can do is they can help out if they choose to from their division to help those poor subcontractors that got completely taken, their stuff taken. Other ways, well, and then the hardline view, unfortunately, is this is the game we play, and you might get hit hard this season, but hopefully they're not going to hit you hard again. It'll be somebody else. And it's happened to a lot of folks. It's happened to a lot. I mean, one season, one of the subcontractors had found some nice onion bottles. They took most of the onion bottles, and that was really all they had found. But it ebbs and flows, and it does, because unfortunately these boys got punished, but then I didn't get punished, you know. So I could buy them a drink or something. Yes, sir.
How far offshore does your claim extend?
Okay, so they go pretty far out. Basically, if you have a center point that we have established from the original leases, and then it makes a circle around from sand to sand. And so I think it's 3,000, roughly 3,000, I forget, yards. Thank you, Jim. 3,000 yards. So it's further than you want to go out. So, but maybe some missing wreckage out there, but it's a lot of unknown territory.
Does the state still grant these salvage leases or only export?
It's a good question. I shouldn't put my personal opinion in, but I think it's something that is not going to be in this day and age. I don't think, and Captain John Brandon was talking about it the other day, I just think that if you were to find a new shipwreck, if we look at the examples that have happened in recent years, there's different things now that didn't exist back then, and we're grandfathered in, but like a Spanish shipwreck would now be, Spain would be taking, trying to take the authority to have the ownership of it with Florida. And there was a French wreck that was found, and a big legal fight ensued, and France got the rights to it, and them, So, unfortunately, I think, especially maybe in international waters, it could be different. But in state waters, and especially Florida waters, I don't think we see any more salvage contracts in the way that we saw then. I think the way that it would have to happen now would be very expensive, and it would use approved archaeology standards, and it would be anything that was found would be the property of Florida. So if you could do it through those, but it would be very expensive, and your only income out of that could be museum exhibits, if the discovery was made, television specials.
What about leases that have been dropped, like I believe you guys dropped what it was, S32?
Yeah. Again, you're talking about legal fights. Yeah. Rick?
How often do you encounter situations where there's like unauthorized salvage, and people just don't know?
You probably both. Probably you don't know, or we do encounter it from time to time, and we've got a lot of good, concerned citizens that report this kind of thing, and we have a great relationship with FWC, which they have been awesome. They were awesome on that thing that we were talking about the other day. But that being said, honestly, I think the biggest crime that happens is not people going out and pirating treasure with these. I think it's people using our company, our leases, and using this whole subcontractor thing to take money from unsuspecting investors with no intention or no ability to really go out and do the thing. I think that's probably more prevalent than actually people going out and stealing. And from the going out and stealing standpoint, I think the more likely thing that's happened in history is that people actually had the license to go subcontract. They were subcontractors, but they didn't turn in everything. Because those people, they can steal in broad daylight. They've got a license to be out there. Somebody going out with prop wash and pirating, I don't think you see a lot of that, because you'd be pretty blatant. I mean, it could happen. I think most of your pirates are doing like low-level stuff, like just diving off of a small boat with a metal detector. And how much damage? I mean, it's not worth losing sleep over. But our obligation to the federal court is to protect these wrecks, not just salvage them. So we have to be vigilant. Yes, sir.
How often do you have to renew the lease?
The leases are in perpetuity. Used to be annually, but the state leases are in perpetuity, and the federal admiralty is in perpetuity. Correct me if I'm wrong, John.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah. But it's not that simple. There's also some other things we have to keep up with. Endangered species, the environment, the Army Corps. Yeah.
So how much of the treasures do you think are left?
Yeah, it's a good question. John knows better than I do because he's seen so much come out. But I mean, what we know is that there was a lot more undocumented or contraband than you would think. And so, but even on the manifest, I mean, you wouldn't think after it's been 60 years, John, of active modern day salvage. 60 years. You would think in 60 years, also, all the years that they did it right after the wrecks, that there'd be little left to find. And then young Levin goes out and in a span of about a month, finds 1,051 large silver coins. I mean, there's still a lot to be found, and I think, I don't know the answer to your question. We could put a monetary value on it, but John, what do you think if you had to guess what's left?
Gene and I did, Gene did the research, but I was taking notes for him at his house in Vero. Mel had us in the early 80s. And at that time, Dr. Lyon, going through the archival research, estimated that there was about 15 tons of registered silver coins on Uvia's Almirante and about 20 tons of registered silver coins on his Capitana, still remaining on the bottom of the ocean to be found. So quite a bit. When we found the main pile of the Atocha, there was 36 tons of silver bars, 7 tons of silver coins, and it was all in an area about 60 feet long and about 30 feet wide. So when you're out there in the ocean, it's a big ocean, and it only takes a small area for a lot of treasure to be. But we do have it documented through Dr. Lyon that there is considerable amounts of treasure, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of treasure, registered silver, and then there's all the gold and all the jewels, the rubies he's finding.
It's amazing.
And the contraband.
Right. Right, and like Captain Grant and Mike a few years ago, just to show you, in an area that is probably within eyeshot of Kip's cabin, a beautiful large emerald ring. I mean, and that's just one thing that takes up very little space in the ocean, but is extremely rare and precious and valuable. So anyway, okay, any more questions? Well, I appreciate everybody's attention, and I got some little stickers I'll set on the table over there by the books if you want.